All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So opposed, no. Ayes have it.
Our visitors are actually presenting later, so to my knowledge.
Anybody have public comments? Okay, move on to the consent agenda.
I was going to ask on the personnel recommendations, what's on there? I mean, is any concern on replacing any of those positions as far as first grade teacher and food service wise or anything?
Well, food service always, that's a challenge all the time. I think that with our numbers, you want to go ahead and speak to the first grade one?
With our numbers, we're just really, I mean, it's the Field of Dreams style over at Ledges Elementary. If you build it, they will come. And then if you plan on it, they won't. And if you don't plan, they will. Like, it's a fun game we play. So we watch our numbers really carefully. We do that save the date kind of a thing that, you know, people don't understand, but we do it anyway because it helps us. I try to teach them, if we know you're coming, we can get a great teacher for your kiddo. So we have those like estimated numbers of what will look like. And it looks like we'll need 5 sections only of kindergarten. We had 6 sections this year. So conservatively, we're just going to take one of those at a top first grade before she's going to move back to first grade, and we'll just fill that spot internally right now.
So we'll attrition.
Yep. Now, if they come, I'll be back.
Right.
Their motion.
Approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Second.
Sorry. Right. And got it. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. On to district career and academic plan update.
So Dr. James is going to talk a little bit about our district career and academic plan that we review annually. And you may remember this conversation from last year, but she'll give you an update on this year's. So.
Am I okay if I stay here?
No, get up.
Okay, if you can hear me well enough, but I'll just stay here. All right, so every year we, as a district, need to review our career and academic plan for students in grades 8 through 12. But for us, we look K-12. We're really going to focus tonight on what we have focused on in middle school and high school. But know that we continue to try to find ways to improve and include more career planning and that career and academic plan with our younger students. But for the sake of the state requirements and for tonight, to keep us kind of short on time, we're going to focus just on middle school and high school and kind of what the goals are, what we learned from our 2022-23 plans, what we implemented and changed in 23-24, and just kind of share a little bit about what the team is focused on across the year. The team's rather large. So just a couple of pictures because pictures are fun of things that our kids have done. In 22 and 2023, so almost a school year past that, our first goal was to just expand opportunities for students in grades 5-12 to engage in the different areas of career planning. And last year was the year that we added BOS to our staff. So we had BOS teaching some classes here at the high school. We had Lindsay Hyman as our EDGE coordinator, really trying to help facilitate and work with our counselors across buildings. So it was a goal of ours just to kind of expand what we do. And we jumped in to do that. We feel like we partially met that goal because all of our students did take place in things that our counselors and that we did with EDGE. Our students took part in our career system right now is something provided to Iowa State that is a free career system. That's what we have been using in the past. So all of our students took part in some pieces of that. And we felt pretty good about having kids try to do more things, but we didn't really track that very well. So we revised that goal, you'll see in a second, to be a little bit more data focused and to really help us track a little bit better. What are our kids really doing when we say, are they all doing that? Are they really all doing that? And how do we know? So that's yet to come. The second goal that we had in our 22-23 plan. Next slide. Perfect. Was to engage all of our kids in more meaningful reflection. And so last year, this past school year, we launched portfolios for all kids in grades 7 through 11. And we really encouraged kids to put artifacts in. There's a little template in one of the high school kids sample portfolios. We revised that goal again for this school year to really include more specific opportunities for reflection and putting in, building in the time for kids to, we're going to reflect on this and it's going in your portfolio right now. So we're trying to really build and use that portfolio in a little bit more meaningful way. But we launched it and we got all kids to create one last school year. And then our last goal from 2022-23 was just to expand all opportunities for kids to take part in college visits or industry tours. We go on a lot of tours. Our kids did get to go so many wonderful spots. Yep, shout out there. That was the last year photo. I think we included more trips. We know we included and did more things and took more kids out into our community with partners. But again, did we really track that metric? And when we say we expanded opportunities for who, and is it really for all kids? So in 23-24, as the team has convened this fall and winter, we really sat down and outlined some goals that were specific to let's track our metrics better. Let's keep doing these good things that we're doing, but let's make sure that all kids are getting those opportunities to take part in it.
Well, Jill, I just want to say that use of that early out day to do that this year for the high school kids,
Yes.
I think was great. My grandson, got a lot out of his tours. He liked it a lot. And he's, pretty quiet, doesn't say a whole lot.
He came home that day. Was
But he
excited.
came home and said, we did this great thing today.
Awesome.
And yeah,
Yeah.
that was awesome.
So, well, John can talk a little bit more about those half days those portrait days, in case some other folks are unfamiliar with that. So in 22-23, we really, this fall, I guess, we took a closer look at what we did last school year for our career plan. There's a link there to a data table you don't necessarily have to click on, but we tracked how many kids really do all the different components of career planning. And there's some places where we didn't necessarily have all kids take part. Maybe we missed one component in 8th grade, or some kids did this, but not all kids in grade 11 and those types of things. And so that data table link kind of shows you that there's some places where maybe we missed some things with kids, and we use that to evaluate what we would put in place in 23-24. Also, we collected our data using a lot of several different measures, the ISU career system. We also give the ASVAB assessment to all kids, and we get some data back from that. And then we have different spreadsheets and things that the counselors and our EDGE staff use to keep track of who's doing what. So we used all those to kind of get a sense of what did our kids do in 22-23. And we found that we kind of have some lacking documentation for some students. So that help set some goals for this school year and how we're going to better track data and even beyond this school year. You'll see that in the upcoming slides too. Nope. That's quite. Can you go back? Nope. More. And one more. Okay. So we set 4 goals, or 4 big goal areas for this school year as a team. John and our staff sitting in your conference room. Realizing that we have all these 5 components that every kid in Iowa needs to take part in as part of their career planning, but that we weren't necessarily, our data showed that we didn't necessarily have in-depth ongoing experiences for all kids in all of those. And so we wanted to do better at tracking that data and make sure that all of them took part in each of the components at least once, and had that is what they did in our school year. And that we also wanted to incorporate that portfolio with more meaning. And so the goal that John can talk a little bit about in a moment is how we want all of the kids in the graduating class of 2027, our freshmen, to do some capstone portfolio presentations. So they'll be building that, and we listed that as a main goal for us to make sure that we continue to improve in that area. The second one there listed is that we didn't quite have all kids do all components, especially in 8th grade. We've had some transition in staff and our counseling staff. And so making sure that we have some routines in place to make sure all kids take part in all 5 components is a goal for this school year. And then really evaluate the platform that we use to help kids go through different activities, or they're thinking about their interests and they're exploring careers. That free system that we use from Iowa State is kind of it meets the minimum bar for us, but as we do more things with our kids, we need a little bit more robust system, career information system, that helps the kids to explore and track and really keep track of their career plan. So our team has done a lot of webinar calls with different vendors and reps, and some demo access, and they're currently kind of narrowing that down to 2 or 3 platforms that might better serve our needs. So look for us to bring that back to you in another month or 2. And then our next 2 big areas were just, we really looked at our post-secondary data and college enrollment indicators. And we see some trends in our Boone data when we compare it to the state, that we have kids that say our statewide numbers are really similar to the number of kids that say they have post-secondary plans. And then the number that actually go and enroll in some kind of post-secondary training is a little bit below the state, but the one that's really most concerning for us is the number that persists. And so these two kind of goal areas are related to that data, saying once we get them through high school with this plan, are they really solid with that plan? And does that help carry them through with their post-secondary intentions? The data that we use to track that, it lags, right? It takes several years to see where does this kid go? Do they really enroll in a training program that they planned on? Do they stick with that? Do they persist and continue? It can take 3 years to follow that, 3 or 4 or 6 years really, to see if they go and they finish their plans. So that's more long-term goals for us, but we want to see some impact on that data because we see some differences in our averages in those different areas compared to the state. And we want to try to obviously improve that data and see some more persistence for our kids. So we're looking at, are there increased opportunities for kids to explore and think about post-secondary a lot of different post-secondary training options, and increase that family and communication with, that communication with our families, so that we're involving the families in that process. And then we also feel like there's a resilience piece in there when we think about kids going and trying something, and do they persist when it gets hard? Do they come back and have that resilience to stick with their plan? And so we've connected that there with our Portrait of a Graduate work, our character strong curriculum, and we're thinking about how are we building those skills in our kids to have that resilience, and are there some things that we can do with our Portrait of a Graduate days as well to build resilience. So those are kind of the, say, 4 big goal areas. Some of them we can impact right away with what opportunities do we have for kids and how do we track that. Some of them are more long-term, as we say, across our system, as we do more things to support kids in this. What's that do for our post-secondary outcomes for students?
All right, everybody. Yeah, it's so great to see you all. I was tasked with talking about this, and I'll be as brief as I can. So when I started, we had the college fair that took place in the gym, the traditional talk to and get some pencils and candies from different colleges. And then we expanded that to be like a college and career day. What we were finding is there was so many skills and so many things that we wanted to work on that it was more than just a day. So this year we expanded it out to 5 days, and we've really tried to be intentional with connecting it to our Portrait of a Graduate. And so the first day, self-care day, we had a speaker come in and talk about the dangers of using negative coping mechanisms for stress, drug use, things like that, along with some healthy coping mechanisms for the rest of the day when students feel stressed or are challenged with getting themselves back on track. The 15th was our traditional college day. We had a college fair, and then each grade level had different events going on throughout the day. Seniors, for example, were able to complete college apps or write or complete applications, where juniors were able to go on a visit to DMAC in town, I think, Ankeny. Sophomores went to the Hunziker Center. And so we were trying to meet that goal of getting everyone onto a campus. Our Roll Doors Day was on January 3rd. This was really a day where we worked on communication skills. We gave, I don't know if you've ever seen this video, but it's like, how do you talk to a stranger about things and make connections? And so kids had prompts, and they were rotating around in different groups. We made it really uncomfortable for them because kids do not like to talk to each other, especially the ones they don't know. And so they had different prompts. It was all guided at making different connections with people maybe that you don't think you have anything in connection with, which really connected to our Professionalism Day on February 21st, which Lindsay and Lisa Jacobson, Megan, Boz deserve huge credit. This day was absolutely amazing. And I think I should say we've gotten better with each day, which is great. The Professionalism Day we tried to build it like a conference experience. So if you've ever gone to a professional conference, there were 8 sessions throughout the day, and some grades had the opportunity to pick 7 of the 8 sessions that they could go talk to or listen to people in different careers, where some, like our freshmen, they had more of a guided experience. They got to go through with our CTE departments and see what classes they can take in the future. Our seniors and juniors participated in what was called networking, which many people in the community helped with, but kids rotated around and got to know professionals in the community or in the area. Kind of an expansion on that previous activity I talked about from Roll Doors Day. And we also got students out onto jobs and different career opportunities to see what it might actually look like in the field. And our community was absolutely amazing in partnering with us in that. And then the last one, Career Day, is not ironed down with all of the amazing things that are going to happen, but we have some ideas, and I won't share them yet because you'll just have to wait. But these have all been aligned to our goals of providing students authentic experiences to support them in whatever they want to do next. Jill talked about some of the resilience things. Yeah, like what do you do when things are hard? Like you don't just get to go home. So we're trying to really be mindful of how to support kids in doing tough things. So.
And what I love about this progression is it's not a one-day career fair. It's not, we talked one day and we filled out all the things that we have in our career plan. It's ongoing throughout the school year, and they built upon each other. So the kids continually have that reflection, and all kids got the opportunity to go to a college campus. All kids got to go to a work site tour because it was built into an early release day, and not a, hey, if you can miss class on this day to go to this one tour. Everybody got to take part. And then lots of kids go on, gosh, we have kids out all the time going on different things related to their interests, but these days have really allowed us to do that in ways that we haven't done before. So kudos to you guys for that. These are just some pictures. I don't know if you want to speak to any of them, but it's just kids doing amazing things. And the networking days down on the left, some of the job site tours. I think the top left is a job site tour. Top right is one of the workshops in that conference style on professionalism day. The picture in the middle would be, in the top middle would be kids talking in that communication that maybe are kids that don't normally sit and talk to each other, but they got to on that particular day. And some of the others are job site tours. That just all happen throughout your portrait days.
Yeah, the other thing, the next one, Levi, a lot of these, there are a lot of things that go into these days besides just showing up and making kids be uncomfortable talking to each other. We do a lot of prep work, and we try to support kids in those skills. And so a couple things that are kind of done behind the scenes, which I know a lot of you know about, are seniors. We do scholarship writing support for all seniors in our English classrooms, as well as mock interviews for all our juniors. So they work on mock interview and communication skills. And then the senior CTE students, so over 250 students work with over 40 business partners to get a real interview experience. And again, the community has been absolutely amazing in supporting us in that. And then sophomores do cover letters. So there's kind of a progression of setting kids up for marketing themselves and really getting themselves set up for whatever career path or education path they want to go down.
I would add a shout out to Lindsay and her team as she's kind of gone through this in that progression. We were able to do the same thing with 8th graders
Well,
this
there's
year.
a slide in here for you. We haven't talked about it yet. So this is not coming. Do you want to speak to 7th grade day?
Well,
No,
sure.
he doesn't.
7th grade day, then you got the 8th grade
So
slide. So there you go.
seventh grade day is coming up. It's hard to talk about that without talking about the 8th grade day.
Sorry.
We'll have all our opportunity for all of our 7th graders to be out at the Central Iowa Expo, looking at trades, businesses throughout the day, looking at their career exploration. We have been trying to do a better job of preparing them as they're moving up into high school. And we've got all these new opportunities to kind of have an idea of careers, businesses, things in the community, outside the community, whatever it might be, so they know what path they would like to take as they're moving into high school. So this has been the first time, I think, at our level, at the middle school level, where we have made sure it hasn't just been bits and pieces and a few students get to go. All the 7th graders will get to go participate in this. And then
What I like about this day is they're exploring some career paths that we don't necessarily have a middle school exploratory that aligns with, but we do have some of that coursework here at the high school. So they're getting a chance to see some things that maybe we aren't exposing them to in those exploratories as they're exploring, say, health, or they're doing FCS and exploring some of those careers. We don't necessarily have an exploratory at the moment that really aligns with some of these. So working that in this day is a way for kids to see some things that maybe they don't have on their radar yet. And now 8th grade day. Okay, go.
8th grade day we had November 9th. I'd say not only was this amazing for Lindsay and Boz and the staff that supported this, but I would say the huge shout out really goes to our business partners. We had a ton of people in. A lot of people gave their time and came in and worked up all those things, time management, interview skills. They rotated through the groups, problem solving, and to have people like businesses come in and going through the interview process and talking through the kids of how you come in and how you shake their hand and what types of questions you ask and how to fill out the application. And if you're not sure, don't leave it blank. This is how you can ask them a question and turn the things in. And so the kids were able to rotate through all those sessions, problem solve, think about the different areas. And it's really neat that the businesses took the time to come in, and that really worked out. So as we were kind of getting closer with that 8th grade, looking at that career interest, got out, went on tours, and
Every kid got to visit at least
every
two.
kid. Yeah, we went to Lane Trailer. We had a lot of kids that are now going to become pilots after going out to the National Guard touring. Not sure if that's a safe thing, but the kids that just haven't, and there were so many kids that just sparked and had never been in those areas and didn't realize that was even somewhere in the community that could have the possibility of having a job as a pilot or a mechanic or whatever it might be. And so it was a great day. And then at the end, we kind of topped that off with starting those portfolio presentations where the kids put those artifacts into their portfolio that will carry with them through high school. So as we're beginning that, Lindsay and her staff have been absolutely amazing, and the business partners in the community have been awesome.
So just a few other things that aren't as flashy that we have going on to help support the plan. I mentioned that we're continuing to review the career systems, career information systems, to see if we can look for a little bit more robust platform to help track and manage all this and give those kids a space to keep track of their plans. Investigating the portfolio process. John and
Yeah,
Scott, what do you want to talk about that? There's
Yes.
pictures up there.
Yeah, I look really dumb in the middle. But why did they let me stand there? So with the same shirt on. So
That's embarrassing.
Are you wearing the same shirt too?
so we in the class of 2027, everyone's been doing the portfolio, which we think is important for requiring accountability for the process that we're having them go through on these kind of Portsmouth graduate days. But the class of 2027 are current freshmen. When they graduate, we're working out the details. We got some time, but they will present a capstone project of their experience through high school that has set them up to be successful in whatever career path they choose. That was part of our visit to Okoboji. They do a couple really neat things work-based learning wise, and they do a capstone presentation with their 8th graders. And they kind of use some minutes from their spring conferences to flex and then move it to the end of the year and have all the seniors, in their case 8th graders, present on their portfolio and the impact it's had on their life and their choices. And so we'd like to align all the Portsmouth graduate competencies and experiences through these days and with the people in our community and create a capstone presentation. So that's our plan for the freshmen. We didn't want to just bring it on the seniors, although that'd be kind of fun. We'll have the freshmen do it.
We did some training with all of our middle school and high school CTE, exploratory, and at-risk staff in February around how to meaningful career conversations training that really gets into how are you having those conversations with kids in your classes and as you're advising and coaching them and what their interests are. I think that's really important, that more than just the school counselor can kind of have that meaningful conversation as we're interacting with kids. We've done some additional work this year on how do we help all of our kids transition, and with that transition planning, especially some kids maybe that need some additional support in that transition planning with special education students. And so I think that's a real bonus to our plan. We really started to say, what are we doing for all kids? And then what do different kids need that will give them the different supports to reach their goals? And so that transition planning has been great. A shout out, we have Hutch here, and Hutch did a tour with some kids about, they did some extra learning around renting, buying, lifestyle choices and those things. And you were in one of the pictures earlier, I think, Hutch, taking kids on a tour. So we appreciate our business partners in helping us do several different things to just get different kids what they need to help plan for their post-secondary success. And then we talked to you throughout the year and shared, but we think this is really connected to that career plan as well, that our K-12 work with our portion of a graduate and Character Strong is really building into this so that they have a skill set to help achieve those goals. And it's not just 5 days have been really in depth and some of these really career specific things, but it takes a whole skill set that we should be building all school year. And I think there's just one more slide, just about, oh, this is the one with Hutch. I knew there was a picture of Hutch. Stakeholder engagement, who all's involved in the process. I think we've talked enough, so I don't have to say a lot, but just we really are trying to communicate more, communicate with our families, what's going on with those Portrait of a Graduate days. You guys have done a great job with the 8th grade day, the portrait days of sending out to families. This is what your child will be taking part in. Sharing on social media what we're doing so that you can have those conversations at the table with your child about the learning that they've done that might be outside of the classroom, and really just continuing to engage. That we've said it, and I'll just say it one more time, that all of the community partners that have helped to engage in this work is really what's making this super meaningful for our kids and helping them to see and really set goals that they feel like they can achieve. So kudos to everybody who's been a part of it. The three of us just get to talk about it. I think that's the last slide. Any questions?
Thank you for your hard work.
I guess I'd like to also do a shout out to your Excel teachers, because they've been involved in this well.
Yes.
Yeah, my granddaughter got hooked up with a professor at Iowa State to ask questions, and found out, no, Iowa State did not have what she wanted.
It's good to find out now.
Which is good, so those type of questions. So, that I think that's another shout out that we need to make clear.
Thank you.
Move on to elementary math.
Levi has the presentation. I wonder if the teachers and Autumn and Brad, do you want to just jump up one seat, maybe? Or stand. You can do whatever you want. Sit and stand. What's most comfortable? I figured you'd choose to sit. Hutch, you can stay. All right, well, we have a large team tonight, which is great, to present the process we've used to look at elementary math materials and a proposal for adoption. So our work really started this fall. We are off cycle when we think about having high quality materials adopted in our classrooms. COVID really harmed us in that way, and that we got a little bit behind in our curriculum areas, and you can only do so much, especially when you're trying to survive during COVID. So it's not necessarily time to think about, let's change everything up with something new. But that said, we're really behind, and our teachers recognize that and feeling like they have some materials that support them in teaching math in the ways that they've been learning are best practices, but their materials don't necessarily support them. So this fall we did had conversations with all of our grade level teams and kind of gathered, what is it that you feel like you really need in a math block in your teaching? What do you feel like would be ideal in a resource, and what are your frustrations with what we currently have? And then with that information, we convened a team. So you can go to the next slide. Maybe a team that was set up to this fall and winter really investigate, what do we want to see happen, what's our current state, and what do we want to see happen in our classrooms that we're not able to do with our current materials. They really investigated what practices and what should math look like versus what are we able to do with what we have. And they prepared to do a materials pilot with 2 curriculum materials that really align with illustrative math that we have in place at our middle school and high school. So we wanted to make sure that the curriculum materials would flow for our students as they're experiencing that, and they have some of the same instructional practices, but we wanted to make sure that we went through a process to review materials and not just adopt illustrative because it was there and it was the same thing that our middle school and high school kids were using and experiencing. So we investigated illustrative math and Bridges math. So we found that they were some of the top rated resources that really aligned with what we currently had in place. And that was kind of our plan of what we were going to do to investigate that. There's only one more slide for me. Oh, maybe just 2. Some of the first things that the team did was think about why would we need new materials in the first place? And we felt like there was inconsistency across our classrooms. Good things happening in lots of classrooms, but if one teacher approaches it and uses language a little bit differently than another teacher as they move from grade level to grade level, that might not be built, the learning might not build upon itself as well as it could for kids. Some of those materials that maybe we were using might not be perfectly aligned to grade level standards. It might be a grade level above or a grade level below when you're kind of pulling and putting things together. And the last one I think is really important to recognize. Our teachers were spending a lot of time searching for materials because what they had wasn't really fitting their needs. So they were searching for things to teach in these best practices instead of having it ready at hand. And this is kind of what they came out with based on feedback from all the teams and the things that they were kind of investigating and seeing as best practices. Is these were the things that we really wanted to have in new materials, that they would really help us get that vision of what we wanted to have happen for kids in our classroom. They would really have in-depth tasks for kids to use that could be used in small group and reteaching. So it wasn't I taught it once, but now I don't have anything to reteach. And the material should be organized and easy because it felt like teachers are spending a lot of time and their time is really valuable. We want them to be able to put that towards kids and not searching for things. And the team gets to go next. We went on site visits.
Yeah. What I guess like the main things that kind of stood out to us when we went on those site visits was like, number one, just the kids were so engaged. Like you walked into those classrooms and it was almost like the teacher was hardly doing anything. Kids were engaged in like conversations with one another, and the things they were able to talk about and manipulate and the conversations they could have were like, I mean, just incredible to be able to watch and see. And it was really fun to see there were like many parts happening at one time. There was like the lessons, and then kids could do like games to practice those while like teachers were working on other things. And then there was a number corner, which we'll talk about more later. So there was just like many parts that were all working together at like one time. And the kids were just like involved. And when you talk to them and ask them, they're like, yeah, I love math. You know, math is like such a great time, or, you know, I love this part of math. And I feel like we don't often hear kids saying that they love math.
I'm going to piggyback on that. Of course, the teachers loved it. And that's huge right there. They love the room. They love how the scores have gone up. They love the rigor. But when you went actually into the classrooms and the kids come up to me and they say, hey, can you come, can I show you what I'm doing right now? That was huge to have different kids just have that, you know, confidence to say, hey, look what I'm learning and what I'm doing in math. That was really cool to see.
In Bridges, they would also have in number corner often, they would show supporting, we've all identified essential standards in math. But they had many activities, especially like I said, in number corner, that were supporting standards. And it was nice because it wasn't, you know, sometimes you would get so busy looking for lessons to go with the essentials, you kind of would forget about the supporting standards that we're also responsible for. But it was very laid out. The lessons were there. You could teach them, and then go into the essential lesson, which I would consider the big lesson, but it just covered all parts of the math we want to cover.
So after we visited places, then they got to trial, and we had, I think all the folks here piloted the curriculum Bridges that they, that we are putting to you to officially adopt. But we had teachers piloting illustrative math as well. And so these are their takeaways from using Bridges. So they each did at least one unit.
I'd say the biggest takeaway is just that the rigor was so much higher than what we have for our students now, and it was challenging. And at first it kind of felt like, oh my gosh, but then after like a few weeks, like things just started clicking, and it was like, it was doable. Like it wasn't too high or too hard. Like it was right where it needed to be for our students. It also moves a lot quicker. I know like Martha and I are both like weeks ahead of the rest of our team on our timeline. But it still didn't feel like it was rushing or, you know, moving too fast. Like it was well paced, but it's faster than like what the rest of our team is doing. And one thing I think kind of as a team we really liked about it was that it was a spiral sequence. So it's not just like, I'm going to teach, you know, adding, and then I'm done with that. And I'm going to teach this and I'm done with it. It was, I'm going to do a little bit of this, and then later it's going to come back, but at a higher level and a deeper level. And it just continues to do, I like what you did that one day in the meeting where your spiral like went up. So it like kind of does that through the sequence. So all year long, they're retouching on all of those skills. And like Jill said, the essentials just keep coming back, but at higher and higher levels, which is a really fun way to see math done.
And I would say like Sabrina and I teach third, she teaches fourth. we could really see how things built from year to year. She came in my room and looked at number corner and went, that's what my kids are missing. Well, they'll have it for next year. So it was really good to see that they fit together, and the kids were really engaged, sharing their ideas, especially at number corner. And we'll talk about that.
That was next. It might be what's
It
next.
might be.
So let's talk about number corner.
So number corner is kind of its own little separate time of day. It's about 20 minutes or so. And it's kind of like your number talks, your math warm-ups, but very intentional, where might have number strings, you might have different patterns, things like that. So it starts with a calendar, and you can kind of see like on the calendars, each piece for the month was like a different thing. So then they started looking for patterns, especially like on the January one with fractions. They could see like, oh, it's going to be half because on this day it was this, and they would count so many days. But then they started seeing that like 2 4s equal to half, but 4 8s, because it just kind of all showed up, and they could make those connections and the patterns. And like Jill said, with the secondary standards or supporting standards, we don't do time, but we did time in number corner, and it was super valuable. And we also did money in February, but it tied with fractions, like fractions of $1, with quarters, and dimes with tenths of $1, and adding the money together. So it's engaging for them.
I love it because number corner is a spot where all kids were successful. Like you think about your class and you've got that whole range of kids. And I had kids that never really participate in math were participating in number corners. They were answering, because it is just accessible for everybody. It's kind of up to the student and how deep they can go into finding all of those things. But it was really nice to be able to see some of my students that aren't as confident in math, or maybe aren't, as strong in some of those skills. They were still successful in number corners, which I think is just a huge opportunity for them.
And they would have some games that would be like teacher versus the class.
Yeah.
And of course, they were always very motivated to be the teachers. They were really like, the one we did several times was telling time and 5-minute intervals, and they were like getting it because they were like after. So that was.
This is my kindergarten number corner, and it changes every month, which is very cool. But this is just March right now. If you look on the left over there in the calendar, every number has its own purpose. So it has 10 frames, it has finger counting, it has a double 10 frame. And then if you go in the middle there, we have Mr. Hart's guess the number, and the kids love to try to, see what Mr. Hart's thinking. And we had to catch it in the middle. That day it was number 13. If you look at the lions and the lambs, that's with weather. That's even added. So lions are like a day to day. It was windy and cold. And last week or the week before spring break, it was beautiful. So we had a lot of sheet days, and it was nice and calm. Yeah, it's awesome. You can see our chart and the graph. You can see the blue is doing well. Today, the red caught up a little bit because of the bad weather. And then we can see we have 100 days, and then we got our 10 chain and another 10 chain. And the kids can do that so quick now. They can go 100, 110, 120, 121, 122. And then we do this every day, and it just builds and builds. And I had 3 teachers come and watch this part of it in the morning. They all wanted to start doing it right away. How can I get this going right away for my kids? And it was just huge.
I think it was really cool. Our TK teacher felt like our TKers could really access it in a place where we've talked so much about rigor being high, but this looks super fun, right? Who doesn't want to do this? But also they're doing really hard concepts and analyzing data in ways. We saw kindergarten, and then we saw shapes at a different school district, and then we saw kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and it just upped the ante each time. And by the time we got to second grade, they were talking about vertices and all kinds of things in ways that it was awesome to see the rigor of that with the fun of Mr. Hart's classroom.
Oh,
I have one more slide about the corner. You can see the kids fight. They want to be the one kid that gets to be the teacher. There you can see Colton up here leading the class. I mean, it is and the rest of them are filling out their chart on the left there. And you can see how deep it is right there. 121 days of school. They had to do their 10s. They had to do 110. They had to write 120. And then 121 with the 10 frame there. How many more days until the next? It's 9 days. And they've got that addition and subtraction. There's our keeping our line there, doing addition right there. So it's just huge. And you can see the picture on the right. That's my class right there. all super into that, filling that chart out. It's just very cool to see. And, yeah, it's a great program. We love them.
It's very hands-on, like, and engaging for them. This is my class doing measurement, and it was a measurement scavenger hunt, and
Martha, was this the main lesson? Like the
Yes,
main unit?
yes,
So number
yep.
corner kind of, it happens all the time and you're having fun with numbers
yeah,
and then this is like the main thing.
lesson. And then there's workplaces, which are like games that they can do in partners, and then that's when teachers can pull kids for like more reteaching, intervention work. But they were using like everything, Play-Doh for grams and all sorts of bottles for liters and milliliters. And you would think some of them have never played in water before, but it was great. They were super engaged.
I will say, like, these guys are way better than me at thinking about taking pictures. It didn't even like occur to me to take pictures because you're just like so in the moment with this. Like, it is hands-on, like Martha was saying. And even at like a fourth grade level, we were doing fractions, and it was constantly, we were cutting things, gluing things, like moving manipulatives and pieces. So it makes something so abstract become like kind of that concrete in front of you. So, I mean, we were just so into it. It never even occurred to me to take pictures.
That might be, is that our last slide?
Yeah,
guys?
that's the last
Yeah.
So to wrap up, this is the Bridges Math is the program that, the math curriculum materials that our team has kind of selected, and when they weighed the two, that felt like it would best engage our kids. You can see they're very excited about it. Brad,
You're doing a great
I
job.
know, I'm looking at saying. So we bring that to you for adoption for our materials. You can see there is one other link there, Levi. But it's the cost, right? Got it. That's the not fun part. They get to present pictures of kids and talk about how wonderful it is, and I talk about cost. That
I don't have access to
Give access
Oh.
to something.
I didn't have access either, but I saw the total at the top, so I figured it was.
okay. Well, then I can talk about that total. That's fine. The document, I'll change the access on it here in a moment if it was me. The document kind of lays out what we get for the $85,800, but teacher materials, classroom kits with all the things for them, like they've talked about, to set up that number corner for each of our classrooms, additional materials for our special education co-teachers who might be teaching in the classroom, but then to have a set of things so they can bring kids back to their classroom if they need to, or they can do some planning and be a part of that work individually. So we make sure that we outfit our classrooms with these classroom kits for 25 or 30 kids, but then also have materials for small group, some intervention materials, because that was one piece that we liked, was thinking about, this is so engaging. We want the kids to all get those concepts as they're learning in their core, but when we need to do something a little bit different for kids, what could that look like and still align with the same language? So some intervention materials, and then some consumables like the student workbooks that you saw the kids all filling out, so that we're not pulling up and printing different copies, but it's ready-made and it's ready and easy to access there for the teachers. So that cost would be for all of those things for our TK through fourth grade classrooms. Document won't open, but I remember there's a little note on there that as far as consumable costs from year to year after the initial purchase, it's around, I think it's $5,500 or $6,000 to replace some of those things year to year. So just to know what that ongoing cost might be with this. And then I also made a little note that our fifth grade team we didn't have fifth grade teachers on this team reviewing these materials. They've been using illustrative math that aligns with our 6-12. So they've been using the fifth grade and the K-5 illustrative math. We reviewed illustrative here, but this team really felt like Bridges is a better fit. And so that fifth grade team has kind of been getting updates and hearing along the way. We didn't have them pilot with just 2 classrooms, and they've gotten so aligned and with some changes they made last year with their math, to pilot a unit would really kind of throw off where they are in their second year of what they've been doing. But they also want to give some consideration to, does it make sense to adopt Bridges Math for fifth grade to help with that transition from fourth to fifth? And so they want to kind of take a closer look this spring, come visit these classrooms and see if that makes sense. If they were to adopt, the additional cost to add that in fifth grade is around $6,000. There's less classrooms. So a classroom kit of 30 can work as kids rotate through a classroom in a different way than it does when we have 5 different fourth grade classrooms. So it's a minimal cost to add fifth grade, and we just they need some more time to review that, but I bring that to you so that you just kind of know that that is in the works and we're really considering what's the best fit. Is it aligning with that illustrative that they use at the rest of the middle school, or is it aligning with elementary with that transition for kids? So we're weighing the pros and cons of both of that right now.
I think the other thing I would add is that $85,800 is a lot of money, but it's actually a really good price
Really
for
good
what we're
price.
getting. And so if you're not familiar with cost of materials and what we would typically have to spend, I was beyond pleased with that number. And then
That also
benefit
includes
is we
training.
still
I
have
forgot to say
some
that.
ESSER learning loss funds that we can use access for this larger percentage. And again, I think that the year-to-year costs, again, extremely reasonable when you look at what other vendors might charge. So
And that year-to-year cost is for consumables that are mainly some of those workbooks. And as we use the program, we can kind of determine which are we using the full workbook, or are there pages that we have access to all the pages to be able to print online. So if it feels like, well, we're using less than half of the workbook, we should print those, and that would be a cost savings. We could swing that way or another. So that annual cost of $6,000 is kind of the max. It could be less if we see we're not using some of those consumable pieces.
What happens if you, I mean, I'm probably rare, but if you have a child that knows the activities already in kindergarten, for example, and they're ready for first grade, and do you give them the first grade stuff, or do you give them something?
What
else to give
acceleration,
to them? What
right?
do you show for acceleration for students that want more or need more?
There was some, like within Bridges, just if you look at like the teacher's manuals, there's places already in there for extension. It'll say, you know, like if kids are doing, you know, this, or this, try having them do this, and this. So it's not necessarily moving up to the next grade standards. It's just going even deeper into what ours are. It's not everywhere, but there are quite often you'll find, and then it even does the opposite. If kids are struggling, how can you then help them on the flip side of that too? So that's kind of built right into our manual.
All of the assessments have rubrics that go with it. So if they miss these problems, then do this. It's kind of prescriptive. And if they master everything, it also has enrichment ideas on it too.
One of the things we didn't really talk about that is built in. Oh, thank you for getting the doc. One of the things we didn't talk about, Number Corner, we love, as you can see. We like the main lessons as well, but then a piece of it, they call them workplaces, right? Workplaces. And they're kind of like little center stations that kids can do. There are maybe game-based activities. And one of the things that we saw on our site visit, I can't remember what the activity was. It's something with place value. But some kids were playing a little game and it was like numbers to 10. And then some were playing what looked like the same game or a very similar game, but their numbers were going to 100. And then some were using even larger numbers. So it was just a nice way that you could see that there was differentiation happening, but it felt like everybody's still working on a similar concept, but just taking it to a different level. So I think those pieces are built in.
On the back of the workplace game lessons and the activities for implementing it, it would show how you could customize it and meet it to the needs of your kids or groups.
Where was the site visit?
Gilbert and Valley.
It sounds like your guys' experience was very similar to your site visit experience. Would it be the same for like a first year teacher coming in? Would it be overwhelming for them? Is it very foreign from what they learn in college, or is it pretty intuitive for someone just starting out?
Well, I'm so far from college. I don't really know.
I don't think you would ever come out of college knowing every possible
No.
curriculum material you use.
Yeah.
And it's always like starting in, so.
The organization is awesome though. I put it together obviously over Christmas break. They give you everything, like the file folders, the binders, and it's just, that is very handy. So I just want to say that part of it.
Well, and Sabrina, I was gonna say
would
Sabrina can really speak to this, I think.
I've never had curriculum. I've been at Boone the whole time since I graduated. And so actually like being able to see curriculum, like some of my coworkers were laughing at me because I was like, oh my gosh, it has this. And they're like, yeah, that's curriculum. So it is like,
She's got a good math curriculum.
it's actually pretty like straightforward. And I would say it would probably be easier for beginning teachers than what we've like had in place now. So yeah, it was actually really, I mean, I thought it was really fun to see curriculum.
Well, I like the way that you come out of kindergarten, you know how to count to 100, you know about 100, you know you've been into your points and you know how to do the calendar. But maybe you won't get that very often spiraling through a curriculum. And it sounds like you're gonna get to use your skills over and over and over, and they just do.
I was talking with an Aveda principal and they've had it for 5 years, something, 5, 6 years. And she was talking about how even this year, the 3rd and 4th grade teachers are talking about like, they're so ready. Thank you. Like you prepared them for me. We can really see it. And they can see it across the grade levels instead of just my own students each year. But like by 3rd or 4th grade, they're seeing those kids really have a strong foundation of understanding things mathematically. Again, you see number, calendar, and we all see the little red and blue, pocket charts back from our day, but it's so much deeper than that. They're analyzing data, and it's so cool. It's so cool.
And it really supports our assessments that we do.
So cool.
Yeah.
I'd say one thing that there was the two groups, one did Bridges and one did Illustrative. There was lots of good things about both, but when it came down to making a decision, it was pretty much unanimous. Part of it was they had to go observe a lesson from the other one as well, or try out a lesson, I think, from the other one. And it was pretty much unanimous. And I think the ones that could have kind of gone either way were like, yeah, I think this is a great decision for us. So we didn't have to spend a lot of time debating which one we thought.
They're like, do we really need to go through this
Prefer.
process or do we just know it's this one?
And I think it was cool. Ballard said they're up for adoption again. There must be 7 or 8 years in, and they're like, we want to keep it. Like our staff love it. And like Ryan said, that's huge for a whole staff to love something pretty consistently. Yeah.
Oh, you guys are smart. You know what you're doing.
Is there a motion?
I move to adopt the British curriculum for math, paid for.
For second.
Second.
So moved and seconded to adopt the Bridges curriculum, K4. Any further discussion?
I would just say too, it's nice to see teachers excited about this too, because you're the ones that are going to be teaching that. Like that's, and then as we talk about test scores all the time and trying to make sure our math scores are where they're at, this right here is, like Julie said, you're spending $85,000, but in reality, it's for the future of our kids from where they are at this point to where they're going to get to. So that's awesome.
Julie, will Esther's pay for most of it?
All of
Esther
that.
will pay for all of it.
All of it, okay.
All of it.
Way better.
Didn't hear that. That's wonderful.
This one, not next one. but
Right.
This year.
This initial,
The big cost one, yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Ayes have it. We'll adopt the Bridges curriculum.
Thank you.
I should have made them introduce themselves and I didn't.
Yeah.
So thank you
Yeah.
to Martha Schwinn, Jill Caruth, Ryan Hart, Sabrina Blattner, and our principals. Thank you.
Easy guys.
Thanks, John.
It's so exciting. Ask me why. I'm so excited. Yes.
This lot of energy.
Yeah.
Okay, we're on to EPA tentative.
Yes, so the Boone Educators Association and district negotiators reached a tentative agreement with regard to the 24-25 master contract. BEA did vote to ratify the contract. It would be $250 added to the base. The total package cost is $380,280 or 3.08% total package cost. And we would recommend approval of the master contract, including language changes and salary increase for the 24-25 as presented.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded to approve the EA master contract. Discussion, please. Any discussion?
I just have a question about monies at the state level.
That we don't know
We
we're
all do.
getting.
We all do.
But there was some discussion and I tried to read through what got through the funnel and what didn't last week. If they dedicate more funds for the, and they termed it this veteran staff to be able to, you know, we had to implement, if there were more funds for that. Have you heard anything?
I have not heard that they
Okay.
would provide the funding for that at all.
I just heard a comment about it on the news.
I think what you're
Okay,
referring
we're
to is
interfering.
that 62. There are two numbers that they had originally talked about. One that would, depending on which bill you're talking about, either 50 or 47,000 to start, and then the 62 later. I think that's what they were referring to. I have never heard of a bill that would actually support
Yeah, and it was
all
very
of them.
brief conversation he was having with the news, but it was
Okay.
just
We already
veteran
meet.
teachers.
Yeah.
We already meet that 62 that they've been talking about. So all of ours would be directed towards
Toward filling the
the newer
gaps.
teachers.
But the
that
ones that are not new teachers, but maybe were, there's no funding for that.
They haven't done that yet. Okay.
No.
Any other discussion? I was just saying between Shannon and Kim, appreciate that they're, you know,
Yes.
coming to the table with what they did and, you know, going to bat for everyone within that. Just the great communication that took place. I mean, we do appreciate that as well. You know, it's talks about the money and everything. We obviously wish we can always get more to help continue to support more, but, again, I appreciated the conversation that we had with them and the dialogue that took place within those negotiations.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. College and career transition. So this is the 28E agreement that we've had for a couple of years now. This is, I think, the third year, I think. For our college and career transition counselor with DMAC. We also share this counselor with Ogden as well. So we pay $25,000 annually for approximately 40% of the contracted time for the position each school year. That number has not changed. It's the same as what we've been doing. And we do receive operational sharing funding to do this. We actually receive funds from the state to support this position. So I would recommend approval that we continue this agreement. Motion.
Move to approve the college and career transition counselors agreement.
There's second.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve college and career transition counselor. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. I have it. Open homeschool assistance program student handbook. So Barb had some changes that she wanted in the handbook, and I can't open the document, so I can't refer to what those are. Do you recall? I don't recall what those changes were. Do you recall?
I
Okay,
can open
great.
them, so I
Great.
don't know why, but I don't own them.
If you could just share the changes that she was recommending, 'cause there were just a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of in the science supplies, she wanted to remove scales and et cetera and replace with slides. A limited number of science supplies, microscopes, scales, et cetera, are available for checkout from the homeschool library. Can you get in there too, Levi?
I think so.
Yeah, and page 14 is where she had her changes at. And then just completely removing art supplies as their consumables. And typically the families are responsible for purchasing their own consumables.
So those were the only two, right? Or
Those
is there
two
another one?
changes, and then there was another reference, I think, up on page 11 to art supplies that,
So same concept in a different location.
yeah, so this limited basic art supplies needs to be on page 11, needs to be stricken also. Yep. I think those were just.
And really, I think the justification is just making sure that we're matching what the state says we should be operating. And so that's really the purpose, is to make our handbook is in alignment.
Okay, so here she has discontinued providing art supplies for KSAP family. Check out all items with the exception of paintbrushes are consumable. All families have the opportunity to dual enroll their children at the schools for art classes if desired. We will continue to keep these supplies in our building for use during enrichment activities.
There you go.
So we used to supply and fulfill them, and now we're just asking them based on state scenarios for them to do it, but they have the ability to come in.
They always have the ability to dual enroll if that's something that they feel that their child needs. So, yes. And I will say that I know Barb really pays very close attention to what the rules are, and when she has questions, she checks with the Department of Education, person in charge of homeschool, and so I'm confident in those changes.
I move to approve the changes as presented for the 2024-2025 Boone HSAP handbook.
Second.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded to accept the changes for the 2024-2025 Boone KSAP handbook. All in favor, say, oh, any further discussion? Don't rush it. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? The ayes have it. That's just contractor closeout.
So we have DLR and Lane Construction certified the final pay application for HSI for our early childhood center for Ledges. And so the final payment in the amount of $109,995.27 is recommended for approval following the acceptance of the final completion. So we would recommend acceptance of and approval to pay that final pay application to HSI.
Our motion to that effect.
So, second.
Okay, who? Jeremy. Jeremy. Okay, moved and seconded to accept the final completion approval of the final pay application for HSI. Any discussion?
Does that mean there's just one more left?
Two left.
One still has work because it's springtime. Right.
Another one, who's the other one? What do they need? What do they have left?
Well, I asked that question last week and I got results.
Okay.
I know they have a major change plan where they're gonna take building power out completely. Shut down the power while they do some changes.
In June.
June.
In June or July, June,
Yeah.
June.
Because there's some problems or?
I don't know. I was just told the power was gonna be out.
I just heard that was the only way to get it completed, was they had to have the power up to complete it. And I said, please don't do our children are there.
You don't notice anything day to day that doesn't work or is keeping you from? Long time to wait to get your.
Yeah, it is.
I've specifically requested that we be done with this by Jan 30th, which is our fiscal year end.
Yeah.
But I had.
Yeah.
I think it was because I said, please don't turn off the power. That it could only be a weekday and it had to be for the entire day. So,
Don't turn off the power during the school day. Yeah.
yeah.
They could do spring break.
Yeah, they can do it during spring break.
They could, but we do have variety.
Oh, you gotta be.
Yeah. Yeah, and people had already paid for their daycare and.
So we need a snow day.
We don't need it. Okay, everyone knows that you jinxed it.
We all know before.
We're all gonna remember.
I apologize. We expect that.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We will accept the final completion and approval of the final pay application for HSI. Moving to Crossroads change order number 17.
So I practiced the pronunciations because for how many months Stephanie struggled with them. So the change order for the Nichiha is,
That's just fun to say.
now that I know how to say it, for the deductive amount is 3,500. That was a long time coming. So, I recommend approval of that change order. It was something that dealt with the Nietzsche cod that was not to the standard we would have preferred, so we accepted the deduct instead. And that's the amount that we think to, so. It's the wood paneling that's on the homeschool and future sites, like an entry and exits and on lots of different surfaces.
Product name.
It's the product name. Okay, yes. It's our motion.
I move to approve the Crossroads change order number 17.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of the change order number 17 for credit amount of $3,500. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We will change order number 17, credit amount $3,500. Okay, resolution of full completion of future school and homeschool building project.
This is a celebratory one. This is where we would like to accept the building project as being fully complete and establish the date of acceptance of completion. So that's resolution.
Motion to that effect.
I move to approve the resolution for full completion of Futures High School homeschool building project.
For second?
Second.
Yes, we moved and seconded to accept the Future High School and school building project. It's being fully complete. Establish the date of acceptance as of today, Monday, March 18th. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Yay.
Yes.
Move on to budget guarantee resolution.
So we need the budget guarantee resolution because we had declining enrollment in on count A of certified enrollment decline of 41. And so that means we go on a budget guarantee for fiscal year 25 if SSA increases less than 3.1. That's what we're anticipating. We still don't know. So, but we need this resolution to be able to move forward. And this, yeah.
So the budget guarantee, if you remember, it is paid, it's funded 100% by property taxes. So that's why we need the resolution while we're doing our aid.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve the supplemental state aid increase, the need for that.
Budget guarantee.
The budget guarantee, rather. I'm sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yes, moved and seconded to approve the budget guarantee resolution for FY25 was presented. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. It is approved. We're now on to E-rate bid review.
Okay, just a quick recap of what E-rate is. So we have category 1, which pays for our actual internet service. And then category 2 is for equipment. We didn't have to do category 1 this year because we're still on the last year of our contract with the ICS. So this is just category 2, which is just equipment. We didn't have a lot that needed replaced this year. So we really just have some battery backup devices, and then paying for support and warranty for some of our existing Wi-Fi devices. So we got several different quotes. Only one vendor bid both the battery backup and the warranty, and that was Heartland Business Systems, HBS. So we recommend that we award both to them. They were very slightly higher on the battery backup than the computer wear bid, which was for the same model. But HBS is local and we've worked with them before, and the other computer wear there was from, I think, New Jersey or Virginia, something on the East Coast. I'm not at all familiar with them. So the way that the scoring worked out, they ended up with a higher score for HBS, even though their dollar amount was just, as you can see, a little bit higher. questions?
Is that your scoring system or is that something for your industry?
Yeah, it's fairly standard. The consultant that we use for the E-rate gives us the template. That's nice.
There are no issues with open data. We can select that even though they're a little bit higher.
Yeah, because we use the rubric.
Motion?
I move that we approve the E-rate bids as recommended.
Is there a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded to accept the FCC Form 470 for Harvard Business System, seconded and by Renee. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Ash Rent Farm Lease.
So this is actually something that we have year, maybe two, I don't
Yeah.
remember. But trying to have, we have a portion of our property out by Ledges that is farmed. And so this is the farm lease. It's a 22.5 contract acres with the rate of $283 per acre for the annual lease of 6,000 acres. So 50, and so we're just recommending for what that's presented.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve the farm lease as presented.
Second. Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the farm lease. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Well, we're on to the superintendent's report.
Just a reminder that property tax levy paperwork will be going out to not sure when, soon.
It had to be sent by the by the 25th.
Okay, so it will be soon. Yeah, and just a reminder that the reason for the increases would be on debt service, that we chose to reduce future interest costs by paying down additional bond principal by levying the full rate authorized by voters, and then our management fund, that amount was essential to cover our costs. So that those reasons are on that paperwork that will be going out to homes as well. They will need to read the fine print in the bottom to see that, but it's there. And then I also was just going to, there's a lot of talk in our community about the invitation that we received from Heart of Iowa. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that I address that kind of the timeline, because that seems to be something that most people aren't aware of, as well as just some of the data that we'll be using before it comes to you as a board for an actual decision. So we were invited by the Heart of Iowa to join that conference. And on the invitation, they had requested an October response, to respond by October. I'm honestly kind of hoping to have that delayed a little further in the fall, dependent upon some other things happening in our community. But regardless, at the earliest, it would be in the fall of next year that would be decided. And there's a lot of data that I feel that we need to look at to make an informed decision. So things that I have, Brett and I have been working on and that already started are our athletic and activity performance records for the last 10 years, just having a good idea of, how have we done in our current system. Our enrollment study that we'll be having, that's something we're going to need, and comparisons to our current conference and to the conference that's invited us. The number of teams that we currently have in each of our sports for middle school and high school, as well as the number of kids on each of those teams, because some schools may have 2 teams, but they don't say it's a basketball. They've got 10 kids, so they make 2 teams. If one kid's absent, now they can only play 1 team. That's kind of important for us to know when we tend to have multiple teams in those sports. So that's something that we will take a look at. It's also been suggested that we take a look at free and reduced populations for The conferences, schools that we'd be competing against in the new conference as well as the current conference. Stakeholder input, so coaches, students, things like that still need to be gathered. And then another consideration would be the travel times for conference games, something to make sure that it's not going to make it worse, or will it be significantly better? So those are all things that we need to consider and things that we'll be gathering. In the meantime, the enrollment study will probably take us the longest. We need to wait for that to kind of see what the prediction is with regard to the enrollment study, because that does impact a lot of things as well. So
What things would we need to look for speech, for drama, or music?
So one of those things would be, and we've already talked a little bit about this, but when you go to contests, like that's something, do they have the same opportunities in those activities? Do they still hold the same number of opportunities for different activities that we have currently? So comparing the current conference and the conference that invited us, I know the orchestra is something that we're pretty unique no matter where we go. And the conference that invited us, I know the band instructor had reached out to Anna, hey, I've got some cellists, you know? And so, but our current system, like our current conference, there's people just don't have orchestra like we do. So those are the same kind of things. Just like we want to know how many teams, well, we have the same opportunities to participate in those competitions that we currently do if we switch conferences. So those are all things that I think we need to consider. So it's not as simple. So I'm glad they recognize that it's going to take some time when they invited us. And so I just, for anyone who's listening, wants to know more about that conference invite, that's part of why this isn't a fast decision.
Will this be a work session sometime when we gather some information or what would board?
I think that wouldn't be a bad idea to do a work session and then also have the actual meeting where there's action taking place. But I think we're still quite a ways out from even a board work session. We're nowhere near that point at this time.
Now that this officially, like now there's rumors about other shifting happening that I've started to hear about. I don't know if you heard about any other changes. Is any of that, you think?
Don't know.
When's the enrollment study supposed to come back again? Is that after? Spring. Oh, spring.
So, yeah. So that's the other thing. Sometimes, if you have, there's other shifting that occurs that could affect your decision as well. So, yeah.
That's good to know. Other people are leaving or kind of invited to the new one or,
Well, I know who's been invited to the new one, but who's joining and who's been invited to the new one. But as far as our current one, that's what I don't know.
You know, I have one more about your the notice of public hearing. We talked about this at the budget work session, but I just wanted to in case you guys, reiterate, because you guys will surely be getting questions and comments and stuff. So remember that this was published with 0% SSA increase, right? Because we are on the budget guarantee. Once this is published, we can only reduce the numbers. We can't increase the numbers. And because the legislature did not meet the 30-day requirement to establish SSA for next year, we published at 0 because if we don't know what's going to happen. So, you know, it has a proposed property tax rate of 17.25, which actually, if we get 3% allowable growth or SSA increase, would actually be closer to 16.57. So please remember, if people are commenting on this was published at 0% because we don't know what SSA is.
Yeah. So there's two, that's the other thing that's different this year is there are 2 hearings where we used to have 1.
Yeah.
So this is the first one. And so we had to err on the side of caution, like make sure that we can still function. And so that's why it was set for as if it were 0 because we still
This
don't have anything.
is like the worst case scenario.
Right.
It'd be better off posting a recap rather than forecast.
That's really what it is, right? It's just.
That's what it is,
It's just
yes,
events today.
yes.
And hopefully by next Monday, I'm not even gonna hold my breath for that. I was gonna say, hopefully by next Monday at the actual hearing, we actually know, but I'm not gonna hold my breath for that either.
Be nice though.
It certainly will.
It'd be lovely if we could know that, but yeah, this is kind of the, yeah,
Worst case.
the worst case scenario.
It is the worst case scenario.
Any other reminders, comments, reports? Okay. Then we'll do a short 10-minute break. And then we'll come back for our recap session.
We can do the motion to adjourn.
I moved it to adjourn. Moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned.
Yeah, so whoever wants it. Everyone go down.
Thanks for coming.
Somebody's trying to be.
If there is.
Joe.